CNN's chief White House correspondent is a household name, and not because he covers the White House, but because he confronts the White House. And now some fellow journalists argue that by becoming the story rather than by covering it, Acosta has lost some credibility. President Trump has made it clear he has no love lost for the news media, especially CNN.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
The main target of Trump's vitriol is CNN chief White House correspondent Jim Acosta.
This Trump crowd here in Tampa, Florida, they're saying things like CNN sucks, go home, and fake news.
Acosta is known to be, well, an accoster, infamously taking on White House senior advisor Stephen Miller over immigration policy.
That sounds like some national park revisionism.
No, what I'm asking you is...
The Statue of Liberty has always
Jim,
been
let me ask you a question.
That go-round lasted almost 6 minutes. But it was this confrontation with White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders that got everyone's attention.
I think it would be a good thing if you were to say right here at this briefing that the press are not the enemy of the people.
While much of the press corps was in solidarity with Acosta, there was some eye-rolling and squirming, a discomfort felt by former New York Times White House correspondent Todd Purdom, who writes in The Atlantic this week, Acosta's broadside blurs the line between reporting and performance, between work and war. Regardless, some people appreciated his effort. But even Stephen Colbert wondered if Acosta wasn't making himself too much of the story.
We're not supposed to be the story. That's not why I'm out there. I get accused of that from time to time, and my attitude is, listen, I'm allowed to care about this country just as much as anybody else.
Touche to that. I had a couple of feelings about this. I thought the question was fair enough. That's something that the administration has said over and over and again, President Trump in particular, that the press is the enemy of the people. So to ask the press secretary if she agrees with that, it seems fair. The theatrics of it were a bit much for me. The constant, almost badgering way in which he asked the question, and then, which was not shown on camera, the fact that he got up and stormed out of the... I thought that was a bit, too theatrical. But I thought it was a fair question. So basically, I think I'm going to take his side on this.
I am a little bit uncomfortable with this. I don't have any particular objection to reporters becoming somewhat part of the story. Part of it is I come from an alt-weekly background, but also that's the era that we live in. But I do think that what Jim Acosta has been doing has taken on a bit too much of the performance art for me to be comfortable with. And I'm also uncomfortable with the way CNN itself is approaching this, because the campaign for CNN was the Trump show. And the way CNN conducted itself may have had something to do with President Trump getting elected. And now they've become the anti-Trump show. And you never really get a sense that they're covering the news. It's always they're trying to do something to goose ratings. And that's the way this feels to me, too.
I would have asked him, what story are you going for here? You're asking her to answer a question where you know she's going to give you the answer that you don't want. What's the story you're bringing back to the newsroom and reporting to the world?
Yeah, I find I agree that the question, the theme of the question was fair. What I'm not sure was fair is for him to put her personally on the spot. The role of the White House press secretary is to reflect the views of the White House, policy statements and so forth. He shifted that to essentially say, what would you say right here and now, essentially on live television, and I think that crossed the line. Not the first time that White House correspondents have challenged. I think that's perfectly appropriate at certain times, but I do believe he likes the role of the performer a little too much. On the Colbert Show, it just struck me as he walked out on the stage, the big wave, and I thought, this is not what we expect.
The audience, I didn't really show that. The audience was really going crazy when he walked in there. He's got that sort of George Clooney
he does have
persona,
that.
And the audience really seemed to appreciate him. So I think he felt he had to acknowledge them.
A little bit over dramatically, perhaps. There's a little bit of, you could be a little bit more humble.
Well, part of that, I think, coming out on Colbert is, remember, Colbert has set that table for weeks and weeks and months, and 2 years, in fact. So pretty much anybody coming out following in the Colbert sort of perspective on this is going to get some response from the audience, because they're set up for that. So there is that. You know what I have and I'll agree with you all that it's kind of on the line. But asking her the question, the point of it was to get her on the record for saying something. Maybe it would have been better if he'd said, you know, Sarah, you have said X and Y and Z, so that it makes sense then to say, we know what the president has said, and are you really saying, as you have these times, you know, as a reporter would do, blah, 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 and make her respond in that way personally. But then she had the way he phrased it, she had the perfect response. I don't speak for me, I'm speaking for the president. So there you go. So it's a circular conversation. The thing that I would say is, I would wish, and it's only happened once now that we can recall on this show, that the rest of the people in that room stood with him. Some of them may be annoyed with him by the way that he does it, but when Fox stood up and said, we're not going to allow you to separate us and say, this is, you know, we're all bad and not doing our jobs.
They didn't let them in, when they didn't let them into the White House briefing.
Conference. The thing that would have made the most impact if all of them had said, and none of us are going to this press conference. Because when you start doing that, that's not appropriate. So to me, it needs more people to say something about this. The question is, should he be articulating this instead of other stories? But that's actually now the context by which all of those reporters have to work. And if that's the context by which you have to work, and oh, by the way, it's heightening the danger. There's just a story that just got tweeted out about the new accessory for reporters is security guards. This is not a joke. So, you know, there are ways to address it. How he is addressing, we can all agree, maybe getting a little too close to it's all about him, but there's a broader issue here.
You do have to wonder what would happen if they stopped showing up for even one day at the press briefing, especially this White House that loves the attention.
Exactly.
What would happen if they didn't play into it?
And everybody
cancel them. Because they don't want to have them either.
Well, maybe, but I think that would make a statement. You know?
And that also forms the basis of a much better question that Acosta could have asked Sarah Sanders. Is the president concerned that his rhetoric may be creating a danger for reporters? And she's not an independent player. She reflects the views of the president. Give her a chance to answer that question.